Imagine trying to explain crying to someone who had never seen it before. Because water starts pouring from your eyes, not because something is physically wrong with them, and not because of dust or smoke or pain, but because you feel something, because a piece of music hit a certain note, or someone said exactly the right thing, or you watched a stranger help another stranger, and something inside you responded to it. Water from your eyes because of a feeling. And it sounds absurd when you describe it that way. And yet, almost every human being on Earth has experienced it, and almost none of us have ever stopped to wonder why. Because crying should not exist, since it does not help you run or help you fight, and it impairs your vision at exactly the moment your vision is most likely to need to be working. So by every obvious evolutionary measure, producing tears in response to emotion is a catastrophic design flaw. And yet here we are. So why did evolution keep it? Start with what makes human crying so strange. Because almost every animal produces tears, but almost exclusively for lubrication and protection of the eye itself. Since a dog's eyes water, and a cow's eyes water, and a chimpanzee's eyes water, but only in response to physical irritation and not in response to emotion. Humans are one of the only animals on Earth that produce tears specifically in response to emotional states like grief and joy and frustration and awe, and that particular feeling of being moved by something without being able to fully explain why. And the tears themselves are different because emotional tears have a different chemical composition from reflex tears and contain higher concentrations of certain proteins and hormones, including prolactin and adrenocorticotropic hormone, which are byproducts of the stress response that the body appears to release specifically through crying. This is not a coincidence because the body does not produce complex chemical cocktails by accident, and emotional tears are doing something specific, even if the question of what took scientists a long time to understand. Part of the answer is internal, because researchers studying the neuroscience of crying have found that after a period of intense emotional tears, most people report a measurable reduction in stress and emotional intensity. Not always immediately, but consistently in the minutes and hours that follow. The leading theory is that crying functions as a physiological release valve, since the hormones and proteins expelled through emotional tears are largely stress compounds that the body produces in states of emotional distress, and releasing them reduces their concentration in the body, which reduces the physiological experience of distress. In other words, the old idea that crying makes you feel better is not sentiment because it is biology, but this still does not explain why tears specifically, or why not some other release mechanism that does not involve water pouring from your eyes in a way that is visible to everyone around you. And that is where it gets interesting, because that visibility is not a side effect, it is the point. Tears are one of the most powerful and immediate social signals in the human communication system. And when someone cries in front of you, something happens in your nervous system that is almost impossible to suppress because you orient toward them, and your threat assessment system shifts from evaluating the environment to evaluating the person. And your empathy system activates. You feel pulled to respond. And this is not a cultural accident, because researchers studying the social response to crying across cultures have found that visible tears reliably trigger helping behavior in observers and soften aggression and elicit care and communicate in a way that words sometimes cannot. A state of genuine need. And in the ancient world, communicating genuine need was a survival skill. Think about what life was like in a tribe of 50 people for hundreds of thousands of years, because resources were limited, and every member of the group was in competition at some level with every other member for food and warmth and protection and the resources needed to survive. And yet cooperation was the only viable strategy, because a group that helped each other survive was vastly more effective than a group of individuals each pursuing only their own survival. And this is a tension that runs through all of human social evolution, since the question is, how do you build genuine cooperation in a group where competition is always present? Part of the answer is that you need a reliable signal of genuine distress. Not performed distress or strategic distress, but real distress in a form that observers can distinguish from deception, and crying is extraordinarily difficult to fake convincingly because the physiological cascade that produces emotional tears involves systems deep enough in the nervous system that deliberately trigger the helping response in others, and old enough that it predates language and writing and every other communication system humans have ever built. The next time you feel tears coming and something in you wants to stop them, Remember that the impulse to cry and the impulse to respond to someone else's crying are the same ancient system working exactly as it was designed, because it kept your ancestors alive and it kept the people who were lost to them from being lost alone. And it is the reason that when something finally overwhelms you, your body does not reach for silence. It reaches for someone else.